mistaken, and they'll be able to upload those data to the dashboard as well. So again, these are FY17 data, and just doing a comparison between our Basic Center program and TLP programs. And as you see, many of the participants and youth that we serve are primarily female. We know that the majority of them are identify as white, second followed by African American. And then looking at Basic Center in terms of trends, a little bit higher numbers in terms of Hispanic or Latino youth being served compared to our transitional living program. So, Basic Center program, and I know just last week we were talking about the Chapin Hall Voices of Youth Count study and the fact that they only look at youth 13, for the younger youth, 13 through, I believe it's 17 or 18. But based on these numbers, we see that 15.3% of our youth in a Basic Center are 12 or younger. So we do know that that's an undercount of the younger youth under the age of 18. And then we look at the mean age for Basic Center program being 14.8, and then for TLP, 18.8 as the mean. So let me, going back to, nope, there. And then looking at sexual orientation for the young people, we see that looking at bisexual and questioning and unsure, for TLP it's a little bit higher than Basic Center. And for me, speculation is potentially that we have youth a little bit longer in our TLPs and they may be more comfortable divulging that information to their case managers. Just looking at some of the characteristics really quickly for Basic Center and TLP. And as expected for TLP, we have a larger 13.3% of the young people who have identified as being pregnant, but we also know that our TLPs and MGHs serve youth who are pregnant and or parenting. Mental health status. TLP, a little bit larger, 25.8% of the young people are reporting that they have identified some mental health issues. And then looking at former child welfare system, not surprisingly, I think we see youth, 22.4% for TLP was a former child welfare system. We know that oftentimes a lot of the youth run from the child welfare system and end up in our programs. So sharing some information about referral sources, what I want to highlight is, and not surprisingly, for TLP, we see that youth are self-referred more so than BCP. With BCP, we're seeing that parents or caregivers are the ones that are making the referral. But I also want to highlight two other pieces of data here. Looking at the child welfare system, it's 10.8% for BCP versus only 3.9%. And schools, I think, we know that we have the requirement to work with our McKinney-Vento liaisons, and I think Commissioner Darling mentioned it this morning. We can do a lot better in terms of working with our schools, but we see roughly about almost 12% across Basic Center and TLP being referred through the school system. Now, this next piece of data, looking at school status at entry. So going back 2 slides. There we go. So what struck me as really critical for this particular piece of data is the number of youth who've identified as being dropped, or who have dropped out of school for TLP, which was 21.3% versus the 5.5% for Basic Center program. And I have to admit, I did not include attending school or school status at exit, because sometimes it was the same or it actually got worse. So I think it's, again, looking at our data and looking at where we want our youth to be as we talk about school status. another piece of data that I wanted to share is looking at project completion status, because we always talk about safe and appropriate exits and making sure it's a safe exit for that young person. So we see larger numbers of youth completing the project for BCP versus TLP. Youth who were expelled or involuntarily discharged, 21.1% for TLP, and still 7.5% for Basic Center program. So I think those are some of the things, or these are some of the areas that I think we want to do a deeper dive to figure out what is going on in terms of looking at these young people and why they're being either expelled or leaving voluntarily from the program. Is it because they leave voluntarily because they feel they're ready to move out on their own, or other reasons? So some of the reasons for being expelled, I think we look at non-compliance with rules in the program, and those are the top two numbers for both Basic Center as well as our Transitional Living program. And then the final set of information or data I want to share with you is related to human trafficking. So looking at youth who said they've received anything in exchange for sex in the past 3 months, the numbers are very low that's being reported. For Basic Center, it was only 282 clients that were reported versus 136. And so looking at those numbers, they seem really high, but looking at the overall sample size, they're fairly low. However, looking at ever received anything in exchange for sex, meaning lifetime, we see that no has been the predominant answer. My one take on this is looking at if we were to get higher numbers for youth who've received anything in exchange for sex in the past 3 months, looking at recall bias, would that number increase if we had more youth reporting, or would it decrease? So those are some of the things that we're looking at once we get the FY 2018 and 2019 data. What I'd like to do is look at trends over time. There are other characteristics I could have reported on, to include dental health, physical health, some substance abuse, and even looking at youth who are formerly part of the juvenile justice system. But just a sampling of some of the data that we're seeing for FY17, and then once we get FY18 and FY19, we'll do a deeper dive. And so I would like to turn it over to Lori Hunter from Apt Associates, who is our newly awarded RHY HMIS contractor. As I mentioned, AIR will be around until the end of the calendar year, but we also have concurrently right now Apt Associates, so I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you so much to the Family Youth Services Bureau for allowing us to come and talk to you all at this conference. I think that the information that you're going to share with us is going to be pretty vital to our project going forward. So as Risa said, my name is Lori Hunter, and I'm the project director for the Apt team, which was just awarded this contract for the new RIMUS system. To that, one of our tasks at the very beginning of this, during the transition period, is to get to the root cause of some of the data issues that maybe you all have had with the current system. So to that end, my colleagues and I, and I'm going to point to them and they're going to wave. Thank you. Are here in the hopes of having a conversation with you about your experiences with uploading data, understanding data quality issues, fixing those data quality issues, and any other thoughts, ideas, wants, and new features that you might like to see as part of a new system. I'm not promising that all of those wants and needs are going to fit in there, but we do want to hear what they are. We do like to follow a user-centered design approach when we build systems, and since you all the ones are going to be using the system, we want to make sure it works well for you. So change can be difficult. Hopefully we will make this a little easier. I want to share a little bit about our Apt team with you. Risa shared a little bit about some of the work we're doing as well. But our company has been at the forefront of the homelessness issue since we developed the HMIS export file in the early 2000s. We have also been the authors of the Annual Homelessness Assessment Report, the AHAR,